Hey, CFGB, welcome back. This is Coach Bob here, CrossFit Glen Burnie in Maryland, Strong Fitness and Nutrition. Today, I'm going to be talking about people who are doing CrossFit and they're 40 years old and older. We might generally refer to them in the masters category, right? So they are 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years old, and they're doing CrossFit. So I want to go over some of how we go about thinking about that, working with someone who is in the later years of life, some of the risk factors involved, as well as some of the myths that are out there. I hope you enjoy this episode. Let's jump in right now and take a look at some of that action. All right, we're looking here at the 2021 CrossFit Games Masters 55 to 59 age groupers going at it in Madison, Wisconsin, working hard. We got GHD sit-ups. Now, obviously, individual, and this is one part of it, right? Individuals that are doing CrossFit, that's one of the factors, right? Everyone's going to be different. You can't just take and put someone in a category just by their age. That's not going to be good enough. It's not really going to help us to make sure that we're really caring for that individual, what's important to them, their goals, their current level of fitness. And we'll go over some of those things today, and I'll show you what we think about and the considerations we give. But the main thing is that you can't really just put, a box around it and say, hey, you're in this particular age group, therefore, we have to do this or that, right? There's going to be a pretty broad spectrum on the overall athlete in doing the CrossFit. So let's go ahead and put this guy on pause a little bit, and we will dive into what I've got prepared for us, the CrossFit Masters handbook. Now, this guide that we're going to go over briefly, we're just going to hit a couple points in here, is a course that CrossFit coaches, CrossFit trainers can take to understand these kinds of things, right? So coaching the aging or the later years athlete. So this is a training guide. And some of the things I want to kind of pick out here for us is some of the considerations that are important. Now, they go into a lot of the background in the handbook, and I think that depth of knowledge is important for us. Really basically helping us to redefine that aging or that later years athlete, right? We refer to them as athletes because we all have some aspiration, whether our goal is wellness or performance. And so we have, a really growth mindset when it comes to thinking about working with masters. Now, one tool that we can use is what I refer to as the Masters Quadrant. And this basically looks at these four different dimensions of an individual. One is basically a person's goals. What are they motivated by? Is it motivated about performance or just general wellness? Are they focused on competing or the social interaction? Do they like winning? Or they like to win? Or are they training for a specific event or a competition or their first 5K, or who knows, right? Maybe they're going on a trip to Europe and they want to be as fit as they can. Fitness level is another area of the quadrant that we can look at, that we would look at, right? Is, where are they at compared to other people that we've worked with? Are they able to do workouts prescribed? Are they active? Are they inactive? What's their history of exercise? Have they played sports? All of that's going to help to inform us, the coach, to understand where their starting point currently is. I would also add into this area of fitness level, metabolic health, their nutrition, and where are they at on that history of their overall fitness is on their metabolic health as well. Now, age, how old is the athlete? Are they in the earlier years, like 40 to 54 or 55 and older? Do they feel, right? This is a mindset thing, limited by their age. And then injury state is really any medical condition that may be limiting. Maybe a current injury, underlying disease state, or any history or injury of disease. And so we would take all four of these different quadrants to help us to better understand and to customize and individualize that person's experience and training. Now, what I want to do next is I've got two more things that we're going to go over. One is going to be just general risk factors. We won't necessarily go over all of them, but I just want to touch on them a little bit. And then I want to also just kind of take a look at some of the myths that are out there, current myths regarding working with later years athletes and folks doing CrossFit. Okay, so that goes into a little bit of detail. Obviously, the handbook is much more detailed than we're going over in this particular video. But I've got some considerations here. Depending on which area that they're kind of falling into, we can look at the differences in risk factors for someone who's maybe has wellness goals or performance goals. And here we're looking at the considerations, risk factors, and priorities. And I just want to touch on this risk factors. Now, in the case of somebody that is maybe just pursuing wellness goals, CrossFit's going to be very adept to providing what that person needs. No specific risk factors here. Now, if the person is, really interested in performance and they're looking at pursuing that, then the risk of injury correlated with their training volume is something that we want to consider. The overall amount of work that we're doing and number of workouts a week and things like that. The competitive environment can lead to some level of risk taking. I remember one of our masters athletes, we were doing rope climbs, and when you're climbing a rope, you are taking risks. You are pushing yourself a little bit as far as climbing, and you've got to be very careful to have a good grip on the rope and things like that. So just like this, it says here, the competitive environment can lead to some risk taking. Next up is just kind of comparing someone who's maybe in their earlier years or versus someone in their later years relative to CrossFit and some risk factors. The earlier years, 40 to 54, no specific risk factors there. Now, obviously, there's going to be a little bit of a spectrum across this depending on the person's current condition. But, when we look at, their ability, they may have reduced ability to handle the RX volume and load, 30 reps per time and 135 pounds, for example. They may be prone to injuries, particularly overuse. And this will come up a little bit later when we look at somebody who has injuries, and then we're modifying that movement for them. We've got to be very particular about watching out for overuse injuries. We also are aware that there can be reduced mobility that might make specific movement patterns more risky, right? And a good example of that is shoulder flexibility, shoulder range of motion, and being able to work on those overhead movements. So things like pull-ups, things like pressing a bar overhead, or handstand push-ups, for example. Those kinds of things would be something we would be concerned about if we had somebody that had reduced mobility. So these are all the different considerations that we're giving across the board on that. Now, let's look at somebody who is fit. They've been active and they're looking at pursuing CrossFit to get more of the CrossFit stimulus versus someone who is deconditioned. Now, looking at risk factors, the fit individuals or athletes are strong enough to hurt themselves, right? So, they may have that strength, but maybe not the functional strength or the coordination to do the Olympic lifts well. And so they can lift heavier, but should they lift heavier? And they may seek high volume at the expense of intensity. And so I think what this is saying here is that we see as a risk factor that You might have a higher volume, which is going to slow you down. So because you can lift more and because you are stronger and more fit, you may be apt to try those heavier loads, but at the expense of intensity. We know that, multiple systems in the body have to be developed over time for us to be able to reach those higher levels of intensity. So there's a balance there. Now let's look at the deconditioned, the risk factors relative to a deconditioned athlete. They may experience some extreme soreness, right? So we all have had that experience where we start CrossFit for the first time and we're like sore every day that we come in and whatnot for many weeks and months. That condition can be even greater if my starting point is one where I have been pretty much deconditioned, right? So everything is going to be new and everything's going to be more volume than what I've done before. So obviously what we're doing there is we're taking smaller steps, we're reducing the volume, we're scaling back, and we're giving ourselves recovery days in there, right? There's a heightened risk of injury risk if you're deconditioned, particularly if mechanics are unsound. So that's why we focus on mechanics and then mechanics and consistency before intensity and load. And so that's well built into the program that people are going to experience, especially true whenever somebody's deconditioned. We have the on-ramp program, we walk before we run, and we've got a low target on a distant horizon. Also, if I'm deconditioned, it's very easy to get demotivated, right? It's pretty easy to knock me off of the wagon. So I need a lot of that encouragement and the camaraderie of having the group and really reaching out to people and checking in on them often. Now, if I have somebody that is injured or has some sort of disease state or something like that is affecting their overall health, then there are some specific risk factors that we want to consider as well. Now, if somebody's uninjured, there's no specific risk factors. But in case of being injured or diseased, a risk of developing some secondary overuse injury as a result of limited variety in the program. Let's say that, I have just make it easy, right? Let's say I have a sprained ankle and there's several weeks and months where I'm not able to do a lot with that one leg, one foot, or whatever. So I might end up, focusing on other movements that I can do. That's going to reduce the variety of the program that I could be experiencing, and that might lead to some higher rep counts and somewhat of an overuse. So I've got to be very cautious of that so that I can really make sure I can dial in as much variety as possible to avoid that overuse. There's a risk of re-injuring. If I have a sprained ankle and I'm trying to do some movement, I might be in a boot or something like that. It is going to make it more difficult to do some things, and I got to be careful not to re-injure. And then for disease clients, overexertion can result in the disease progressing. So working more closely with the client and with their doctors and the recommendations that they're providing help us to provide the best for them. I think that's it on the risk factors. Now I want to go over some of the myths that are out there. They have them in here. This is pretty cool. Myth number 1. Okay. These are just some common myths and misconceptions. The reason why I want to talk about the myths a little bit here is that when we think about like starting something new for the first time, it's easy for us to have that myth either told to us by a friend or a family member or a colleague or something like that, or maybe something we have heard. And so as coaches and working with folks, we want to try to dispel the myth so that we can really work toward helping someone to move toward their goals. So myth number 1, older athletes cannot get stronger or improve their physical capacity. That's it. You're an older athlete. You've kind of reached the end of the line. Well, that's a common belief that as you age, you get weaker and lose capacity. It's implied that older athletes cannot get stronger or improve their capacity. In CrossFit, the Masters community, we have a substantial amount of data that shows that that's just wrong. Okay. Folks are coming in and they are getting stronger. They're improving their physical capacity. That is just a myth. Now, there's some additional detail they provide here, backing that up in the handbook. I'm not, just for an interest of time, I'm not going to go deep into each one of those. Myth number 2, older athletes should not train at intensity. Somehow intensity is bad, right? Older athletes are often told that low intensity training is the most appropriate to avoid strenuous activity. A common piece of advice is to take everything in moderation. This misconception that the older adults should not train with intensity seems to be based on a misguided belief that intensity places the athlete at risk more so than a younger athlete. And intensity, though, is an important part within our program, and it's just a real core tenet of CrossFit for us to be able to pursue those health goals and those performance goals too. Intensity is important with our program because it's the independent variable that's most commonly associated with maximizing the rate of return of our training. If we want to get better and get more toward our goals, we have to dip into that intensity. Now, it is done intelligently with all of those risk factors being considered. But I tell you, this is an important ingredient, being able to push a little further than what we think we can do. That's an important part as well. Myth number 3, older athletes need a segmented program that's simpler, has reduced skills and reduced skill demand. Older adults are often told by their doctors that the most appropriate form of exercise is walking. Although this might be a good starting point for someone who's lived on the couch, life on the couch, there's no evidence to support that myth that the older adults need a simplified exercise program. CrossFit's unique in its ability to train the neurological components of fitness, the coordination, accuracy, agility, balance. I mean, these are all good things, and we want them to be a part of our training. Let's move on. Myth number 4, older athletes can't train hard because they have diminished ability to recover. It's a common assumption among coaches and athletes alike that it's harder to recover as you get older, and therefore older athletes need less work and more recovery time. By recovery, we mean, like being able to get back to your next workout kind of a thing. The literature is inconclusive, but the key point here that I want to kind of give is that, it depends on what we're really telling ourselves. If we tell ourselves that, my recovery is poor, I really need some extra time, stuff like that, I might miss out on some opportunities. I would much rather have an individual work with their coaches and maybe, work on the volume that's appropriate for them. And, based on where they're at on that whole, quadrant and stuff like that, to move them forward on their overall fitness. Let me show you what that looks like. There's a nice chart in here on what we're really after. Let me scroll down to it. Okay, this is the CrossFit model of aging. And these different charts here represent 2 different individuals at different points in their life. On the left-hand side, we look at the capacity for, the overall capacity, our ability to do things, right? And there's going to be a dotted line in here where you might say is just, you don't want to fall below that line because that's the minimum capacity for quality of life. Up above is we got high capacity and then our overall genetic potential, based on, how, our overall genetic makeup and what we can possibly do, right? So what we've got in this middle area is essentially this hedge area from, where we are to what we can do. And so as we age, if we remain inactive, we're going to more early fall below this desired line, right? So what we want to do is we want to extend that by being as active as possible. Now, this is comparing 2 individuals, someone with average fitness and someone with a higher level of fitness. In both cases, the curves are similar. If you choose a sedentary lifestyle and you are not active and you're not using it, you're going to lose it, right? 30, 40, 50 years old. Look at this. Here's a 50-year-old that has more capacity, right? Over here, they just got average fitness, but they've been active, more capacity than they did when they were younger, right? They were able to extend this area here by being active, right? Same kind of thing with someone with high fitness. If you look at this level of high fitness, they can stay active for many, many, many years and stay above this line and stay active. Hopefully this has been helpful and interesting to you. I just wanted to share with you some of the things and the ways that we think about working with individuals, regardless of what their starting point is, to help them to have the best outcomes in their life. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Take care. Have a good day. Stay active, stay fit, stay healthy, eat something good. Take care. Bye. Peace.